TV1 රැස්වීදෙන ජීවිතේ
නැගිටින වෙලාවෙ කියා දෙන ජීවන කලාව
මානසික ආතති තත්ත්වයකදී
මට කලින් වෙන කෙනෙක් ඉස්සර වුණා. ඉතරහට ඇවිල්ලා කියන්න මමයි මේ වැරද්ද කරේ කියන්න.
බැංක් වලට යම් බලපෑමක් කරනවද කියන එක තමයි මට තියෙන සැකය.
බරපතල චෝදනාවක් තියෙනවා.
අයිදුම් පත්‍රය බාර දුන්නට පස්සේ යම් කාල සීමාවක් රැඳී සිටියේ.
ජලය හුරුලුවට ලැබිලා දෙනවා.
මේ හොඳ දැනුමක් පිරිපුත් ගලේ බවට පත් වෙනවා.
මේක ඉතාමත් පැහැදිලිව කිව යුතුයි.
නැගිටිමු ශ්‍රී ලංකා හැමදේම කියන හැමදාම උදෑසන 7 සිට
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukutali.
And a very good evening to you and a warm welcome to Newsline Live. Repressiveness is preempting the curtailment of future dissent. Is that true?
Yes and no. Yes, because the repression is definitely in anticipation of what's to come, but it's also repressing what's happening now, because it would be incorrect to think that there's no dissent right now. There is plenty of dissent at the moment also, and the government is acting against whatever dissent there is even now. So it's not just dissent in the future, it's dissent right now.
Dr. Harini, isn't it absolutely ironic that this government, the government of the day, they if you look at what they've done in terms of repression and keeping the people down and dampening their right to protest and to have some dissent, because their lot in life has been affected tremendously. And therefore, isn't it highly ironic that this government has spent so much of time and so much of energy and so much of focus on holding the people back, pursuing these largely innocent protesters from the Aragale, for example, and so on. And now, you know, this business about the Bureau of Rehabilitation. I know the Supreme Court has made its determination, but if the government is very adamant about it, they can have some type of version of that bill. And so all of this indicates to me that the government's actions are completely lopsided. Instead of solving we have 5 crises at the moment, major ones: the economic crisis, the dollar crisis, the tax crisis, the food crisis, and the interest rate crisis. And instead of solving those, they're going around trying to make laws or strengthening existing laws to hold the people back. What do you say as a parliamentarian to this?
From the point of view of this government, is entirely in keeping with their culture and their political mandate, right? So it is not ironic in that sense. It's ironic to you and I, it's ironic to the citizens of this country. But if you look at it from the point of view of this government, this is what this government does best, right? So it is entirely logical, and I'm not at all surprised. We don't expect anything any different from this government. This government is doing what it's known for, repression, avoiding solving issues, because it's not interested in any of that. It's interested in maintaining power in order for their own personal agenda. The Rajapaksas cannot afford to lose power, because if they do, they will have to answer for their crimes.
But they lost power and they hardly answered to the so-called crimes.
Because they allowed another party to come into power, which guaranteed their safety, right?
That suggests that they knowingly lost the election.
Not that they knowingly lost the election, but that they would have fought harder to stay in power had they no guarantee that they would be kept safe by the government that came into power after they lost in 2015. I mean, there was a visit by Ranil Wickremesinghe to Temple Trees to negotiate their exit, right? and whatever was discussed and agreed upon during those negotiations is what enabled Ranil Wickremesinghe to form the government in 2015. So that is what happened in 2015. That is what happened in 2022 as well. So it's not at all. So the repression is because, for the first time, because of the Aragala and because of the shift in the mood of the people, for the first time, this government was challenged. And when I say this government, I mean the cronies, the network, not just the Pohotra, but the whole.
Everything was kind of exposed.
Was exposed, and they were challenged for the very first time by the citizens of this country, right? So they had to act swiftly to make sure that that kind of uprising could never happen again, right? And that is what they're doing right now. It's not going to stop that uprising. It's not going to stop the people from making the changes that they want, right? But the government is acting entirely within, how do I say it? Entirely in plan with their DNA. With their DNA. This is you cannot expect anything else.
Better.
No, certainly not.
But okay, let me take what happened today. About 179 people voted for, 1 voted against, and the rest were absent. Why did you all vote for it?
We thought long and hard about it.
Yeah.
Right, and right to the last minute, we were discussing what our vote would be, because it falls way short of our expectations of the kind of political reforms that are required. But we felt that the 22nd at least allows for the commissions that was scrapped through the 20th Amendment to return with some semblance of independence.
What is the composition of that? Is it mainly parliamentarians and
composition of the commissions?
Yes.
No, the commissions can be appointed. The commissions can be appointed. That they are not made up of of parliamentarians. The problem lies with the process of appointment, where the president and the ruling party still have far too much influence over the appointments.
Yes.
Right.
But so they may be tempted to appoint their sympathetic supporters.
Yeah, but it's definitely a marginal improvement on the 20th. And for that reason, we wanted to support something that would shift towards a more democratic system. It falls way short of what we would ideally like. But from this parliament and this president, we cannot. Definitely we cannot expect the kinds of reforms that we would like.
And who are these 45 who didn't vote? Or who were mysteriously absent?
Mysteriously
maybe they all had a toothache.
Maybe they all had a toothache or a tummy ache.
Oh yes.
Let's hope it's a tummy ache.
Yeah.
I actually am not very sure, because I was also trying to work it out which seats were absent. I know Mahinda Rajapaksa wasn't there.
Okay.
Johnston Fernando wasn't there.
Is this all to do, how much of this vote that the NPP cast in favour of this amendment was to do with the withdrawing of the dual nationality aspect?
That was not a primary concern for us, simply because I mean, as far as we are concerned, the Rajapaksas are a spent force. Right?
But are they?
They are very much a spent force.
We saw Mahinda Rajapaksa in Kalutra recently.
Being propped up by several people. I don't think the country is ready to lift themselves up with Mahinda Rajapaksa as was demonstrated. So I mean, that's a spent force. I think it's very clear people have rejected Rajapaksa politics. What is more dangerous now, or as dangerous, is another version of Rajapaksa politics.
And what is the Rajapaksa politics? Is it one of divide and rule?
No, I think it's more than that.
Divide the communities and then rule.
Yes, definitely it's very divisive. So they use ethno-religious nationalism to divide. That was sort of the Rajapaksa brand.
Yeah.
But I think the danger is that the other version of it comes with a veneer of sort of liberal and democratic values, right? So it presents itself as more liberal, more democratic, but essentially it is not, right? And therefore it's far more dangerous than the cruder version of the Rajapaksa project, which is patently racist, nepotistic, corrupt, and violent. The other version is also all of that, but comes coated with this sort of superficial appearance of liberalism and democracy, right? And therefore, in my mind, in many ways, it's even more dangerous.
And somebody's complaining that there's a problem with the sound. I'm sure our engineering will look into that. Thank you for letting us know. But Harini, the people continue to suffer.
Yes.
The prices have gone up tremendously.
Yes.
I mean, I'm no economist. I can't understand this. But I'll tell you what my problem is. The fertilizer was 7,000 rupees a ton for the paddy. The fertilizer goes in the paddy cultivation. It's now 200,000.
Yeah.
Fertilizer for the other agriculture is 360,000 a ton.
Yeah.
Now then, the dollar was 203, it's now 370 something.
Yeah.
There's a war going on in the Ukraine. The wheat prices have gone through the roof.
Yeah.
Combine that with the devaluation of the rupee,
Yeah.
so 203 to 370 on the dollar,
Yeah.
and you have the recipe for the food inflation at 95%.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't understand a bit in the ambience of that ambience when you raise the interest rates.
Yeah.
You raise the interest rates,
Yeah.
and how if there's anyone out there who can explain this to me, please get in touch with us. 0772 300 305 is the number. Don't call. Send us a text. We'll call you after the show if you can explain this. How is that going to... You raise the interest rates up, world prices have gone there, they've done away with the subsidy. How are we going to bring the prices down?
They're not interested in bringing the prices down. I think that's a huge assumption to make, that whatever decisions that they are making...
The public out there are waiting for the prices to go down.
They don't care.
You mean the politicians don't care?
No, I don't think this government cares at all. I don't think this government is working towards bringing down the prices. I mean, I think it's caught it's in a trap, right? Where when the government decided in March or April of this year that it was going to, in essence, declare bankruptcy and not repay the loans that were due, right? It started off this process.
Do you agree now, with hindsight, that perhaps it was the wrong thing to declare bankruptcy?
Yes.
It was wrong.
It was wrong in this sense, that it then put us inevitably on this path of a bailout, right, and a restructuring of the loans, right? That now that is inevitable. That there's no getting out of it. The minute we stop repayment of loans, that's the next step that has to. Those are the next steps that have to follow. What was not considered was the impact of that restructuring on the lives of ordinary people, right? So,
because in my view, that's because there is no plan.
No, absolutely. No, absolutely, there is no plan.
It's like the story I told Dr. Harsha about the kitchen. Policy is, we want a good kitchen.
Yeah.
Action plan is, build the kitchen. So you get hold of a Basuna and say, build me a good kitchen. Only you haven't given him a plan, so you're going to end up with a Harak Madua.
Well, yes and no again for us, in that the people in charge right now, the people making decisions, only know of this way of handling things, right? They cannot think of an alternative way. They cannot think that there might be other solutions to this problem, right? And any sort of solution that they are proposing comes from a point where they refuse to make any concessions for themselves, right? All the burden, the stress, the pain of having to deal with all of this is delegated to a group that they are not part of, right? So they are protected from all of this. None of these decisions affect them or their lives, right? And as long as that goes on, they think, well, this is the solution because they are not affected.
But Sri Lanka is in a crisis mode. The crisis is not just at our front door, it has now entered the kitchen. After the break, we'll ask Dr. Harini Amarasuriya more about that. See you on the other side.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
A trusted place for your fixed deposit. Valuable FD, 25% for 2 months, 25.5% for 4 months. Valuable FD, the symbol of stability.
22nd Amendment to the Constitution passed with support from the opposition. 22nd Amendment necessary for IMF support and GSP Plus concessions. 2 senior cops issued summons to appear in court for obstructing protests. SJB lawyers go to the Bribery Commission for progress on Pandora Papers probe. ICC T20 World Cup, Ireland knocks 2-time champions West Indies out, reaches the Super 12.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
And thank you very much, and welcome back to Newsline Live. We're delighted to have one of our old producers, very old, Navakshes on the production today. Thank you. Now then, why is Parliament not taking this matter up? This matter about the economy. And you know exactly what you were talking about the devaluation of the rupee and so on, and declaring bankruptcy. Because you know what? This is a serious problem. It's not just at our front door. It's at our kitchen now. It's in our kitchen. Does the people's suffering not count? Doesn't Sri Lanka Lives Matter count?
Not to this government. It doesn't
But
matter.
why are you, as a parliamentarian, not asking the governor of the central bank or the Treasury Secretary, right? Leave Mr. Nandalal alone. Let's say Treasury Secretary. Why can't you all ask him for a update? Why the government's raising interest rates by 10, 15, 20, 25, 30% now? What is the impact on the rest of the public, on the people? Why can't you ask, as a parliamentarian, why can't you ask for these reports and these forecasts on a regular basis?
Faraz, if you look at the Hansard over the past 2.5 years, you would have seen the leader of our party, Anurakumara Dissanayake, raising these questions over and over again. You would see others raising these questions over and over again. If you have access to the discussions that went on, for instance, in the oversight committee that I am part of, COPA, we have raised these questions over and over again. But I think there needs to be one thing that is clearly understood about the crisis that we are facing, and that is that this parliament is actually a mockery of the parliamentary system. It no longer represents, if it ever did at all, the wishes of the people, or it no longer has a mandate. It is no longer acting in the interests of people. This is why for several months now, the NPP in particular has been demanding that Parliament has to be dissolved, because this Parliament is incapable of responding to this crisis. there is no possibility of passing anything that is remotely in the interests of people through this parliament, because that is not the interests of the majority of those in parliament today.
Electricity and water bills have gone up.
Yes.
Transport's gone up.
Yes.
Everything's gone up, 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 up.
Yes, except people's income.
And you know what's going down?
People's income.
Jobs.
There are no
Experts
jobs.
say that up to 1 million people will lose their jobs or suffer reduced income. The reduced income bit is already in force.
Yeah.
So why are the parliamentarians not taking this matter up? Is this not a serious problem?
Of course it is a serious problem, and we have been taking it up.
But the president proposed that the new taxes start from 100,000 rupees per month earners.
Yeah.
Does anyone know how many people earn 100,000 rupees a month?
A significant proportion of this country.
Really? Well, who earns about 140 and 150,000?
No, because
the tax. The point I'm trying to say is, it may be significant in that way, but what is insignificant is the amount of taxes that can be collected amongst these people. It's insignificant compared to the losses of state-owned enterprises. Why should I pay more tax and see some of my money going into being ploughed into things like the CPC and the CEB and Sri Lankan Airlines and God knows what else?
I think
Paddy marketing, maybe.
No, I think the bigger problem is that your tax money is going to be ploughed in to maintaining a corrupt government, right? Because I think there's this narrative that has been built about state-owned enterprises, which is also not entirely correct.
Well, it's part of the ideology of one of the of the SLFP and also part of the SLPP. Thou shalt not touch state assets. But that's where the corruption comes in.
No, the corruption doesn't come in because they're state-owned. The corruption comes in because of the corrupt political culture. If you don't change the political culture, the problem is not whether it's state-owned or not.
Well,
the
actually,
problem is
I must disagree with you there, because let me give you a small example, an easy one. If Sri Lankan Airlines was sold off, get what you can for it, because we make more money by not giving them handouts, right? And I know the team at Sri Lanka will call us and say, oh, no, we haven't got money from the Treasury. What about all the money you had before? Right, anyway, let's say it was privatized, and let's say some corporate bought it. Do you think that those CEOs and so on who were caught out by Airbus in the UK, in those legal proceedings, do you think they can go up to the board and say, listen, we want to cut to this, we want to cut to that, and, come on. Because it happens because it's state-owned.
No,
there appears to be this feeling, because it's state-owned, robbing from the state appears not to be a crime.
Far as I disagree with you there. The problem is not whether it's state-owned or not. There's corruption in the private sector as well, right? The point is not whether...
But the private sector doesn't cost the people, though.
It does in the long run. It does in the long run, right? It does, because you may not be robbing tax money, but corruption hurts the people wherever that corruption comes from, right? So we have to eradicate corruption. State-owned enterprises...
How would you start?
By the change in the political culture of corruption, because it's the corrupt political culture that enables.
So would you welcome this political funding laws?
Oh, absolutely. It's not just political funding laws. Okay, you look at why state-owned enterprises are not performing well, right?
Because of the corruption.
That's just a popular sort of understanding of what exactly is wrong with state-owned enterprises as well.
Garlic, sugar, potatoes.
Yes.
That's all these sweetheart deals.
So those are deals that are made with also the private sector's involvement, right? That's not the trading is not a monopoly of the state. That's political corruption.
Well, yes, it's state or literally state sponsored because we're paying the bill.
No,
You know, if
yes.
Satosa was a private entity...
If what was a private
if
entity?
Satosa was a private entity.
Satosa is...
Well, it's, you know, the CWE, sorry, CWE is patently not. You know, they get all these things at inflated prices, then they say, oh, that's not very good, and they reject it, and the same lot turns up again as one of those former chairmen came on the program.
For us, the problem is not there. The problem is not whether...
Where is it?
As I keep trying to tell you, the problem is with the connivance of all of these different aspects of corruption that exists, not only it's in the politicians, it's in the private sector, and certainly it's in the state system, right? So that corrupt system has to be fixed, right? It's not about whether it's state-owned or privatized, or that's not the debate we need to have. We need to have a debate about eradicating corruption. And the origin of that corruption lies in this, in the ways in which this economy is run currently, which is basically this is crony capitalism. This is how crony capitalism works, right? So to eradicate corruption from crony capitalism, right, you have to address the root cause of it, which is crony capitalism,
right?
Right, and that is actually maintained not just by the state. Of course, the state, there's a state.
I've got somebody here asking you to explain. Please explain what is crony capitalism. We don't understand. You're using language that is more suited for the SJB.
More suited for the SJB.
Well, I don't know, but anyway, what is crony capitalism?
Capitalism is a corrupted version of capitalism where there's sort of an oligarchy or a few people who own and manage the resources in order to make profits for themselves.
So these cronies will
right?
be
so
people
close to those in power, right? So it consists, that oligarchy would consist of the politicians, the state officials, people in the private sector, people in the defense sector, security establishment. Between them, they manage and own the resources or the means of production through which they can generate profits for themselves. That's...
Dr. Harini, let's say this crony capitalism is there. It is there. But it's been going on.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter which president was in, whether it was Jayawardena, Rajapaksa, Kumaratunga, Wijayatunga, Premadasa, whatever. In some form or other, it's been there. Then why is it that the people continue to elect people who foster crony capitalism? Why haven't they voted for the JVP, the NPP? Well, NPP they knew, but the JVP.
Yeah, no, because crony capitalism has its own logic, right? Its own...
To keep the JVP out is one logic.
Keep the JVP out is one logic, but to keep its system going is another logic, right? But within that system itself, it generates crises, and it also has mechanisms of resolving those crises. But there comes a breaking point. None of this can continue, crisis after crisis. It cannot go on forever, right?
Yes.
Now we have reached a point of no return. Right. This is sort of the end point of that crisis-ridden system. So that is the crisis we are facing, right?
And apart from complaining, what plans has the NPP got? Are you working hard at the grassroots, getting ready for the next election whenever it is due?
Absolutely. Look at my drained face and my sort of dark circles under my eyes.
You need to look at the drained face.
If you do a close-up, you can see.
Close-up on Dr. Harini Fernandez.
Dark circles under my eyes, because we are on the ground 24/7.
Right.
If you look at this moment, I can confidently say that most of my colleagues are out on the ground, working hard, organizing, working with people, explaining to them
Can you
this
do me
crisis.
a quick favor before you...
when you not just explaining the crisis, but also explaining the solutions that we require to come out of this crisis.
Thank you, but the favor is, could you have a little quiet word in the eyes, in the ears of Mr. Anur Kumar Dissanayake.
Yes.
Tell him we're waiting for him to come on the program. Just tell him that.
I will.
Thank you.
I will pass your message on.
Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, thank you very much for being on Newsline Live.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's been a great pleasure. Please solve the problems of the people. And on
We'll
that
do our
note,
best.
you please try best. We can't
Yes.
ask you to do any more.
Yes.
On that note, it's the end of Newsline Live today. So take care, have a great evening, and as always, God bless you. It's now the primetime news.